Okay, at number 10, I'm looking at it in the monitor here. What? What is this? How is this guy wearing a mask? I'm very confused right now. It looks elastic, but I don't know how he got it on his head. And I know I should be focusing on the weird figure in the back in like the 17th century clothes who looks 100% ghost-like, but I'm too focused on this guy's face to even be scared by what the hell's happening in the background. Okay, apparently he cut open a bouncy rubber ball and covered his face with it, which I don't even understand how he did, but props to him first of all, I'm impressed. Secondly, now we can talk about the ghost in the back. Okay, if I was a ghost and I came back from the dead and saw this human I was haunting pulling this kind of crap, I'd be like, no, send me back to the grave. I did not sign up for this. Okay, at number 9, we have this girl doing her makeup in the mirror. This is a very 2007-esque picture, I feel, and it seems pretty normal. I can't really see anything. Scanning. Let's see what I can find. Oh, okay, in the mirror. Okay, so the girl is doing her makeup and there's like it's a very faint face in the mirror. It's not really a face, it's more like a demon ghost sort of thing, and it's very freaky that this is in her room. Is it her room? Is it someone else's room where this figure is haunting this room? I'm very confused. But the ghost looks absolutely fuming, like, how dare you use a shade of blush? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Like, I don't know why this thing is angry, but I feel very sorry for the girl because she's just innocently just there doing her makeup, really, getting haunted. Okay, at number 8 is this portrait of this Asian woman. I think it's just a picture of her. Okay, seemingly this picture looks fine, but it's actually not because I just saw her feet. Wow, okay, at first glance, I was like, there's a mirror behind her. Usually with these pictures, the reflection would be like her own face looking back at her or something like that. And I just thought the freaky thing would be in the mirror, but it's actually her feet. And I know in like some Asian cultures, it's like aesthetically nice looking to have really small feet, and then like they do feet binding as well. But I just assumed your feet would just stay really small. I didn't know they would actually change shape like that. I mean, like, how are her toes even folded over like that? And like her big toe kind of just looks like a cone. Like, how does she wear shoes? That's what I really want to know. But also that must be really painful, so I really do feel for her. I'm sorry that I had to use her as an example. Okay, at number 7 now, we have a woman posing with her dog, and the dog really just doesn't look like it wants to be in the photo at all. The woman's so happy posing. The dog's like, no, human, I just don't want to be here. Do you not understand? And I mean, is that the freaky thing, like the dog's eyes? I'm confused. Okay. So there's a figure behind the glass section of her front door. There's just like someone on her front porch just there. Why do these figures always look like they're people from a different century? Like, they never look like modern people just haunting you and lurking around. It's always people from like 40 decades ago. Like, I don't understand. That's probably why the dog looks like he's just at himself, because he probably sees and senses and feels the ghost. I've never had a dog, but apparently when they bark at nothing continuously, they're actually barking at like spirits or ghosts. Is that true? Let me know. I've only ever had cats and they don't do that. Okay, at number 6, we have this girl sitting in her dorm room, it seems. And I want to say dorm room because this sort of looks like the bed I had in my dorm, but it could be her house. I mean, who knows? I mean, this seems pretty wholesome. I don't know what I'm meant to be looking at here, but I feel like I say that every time and then I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, so I'm scanning. Okay, so there's this guy's face wedged in the corner of her bed, like just under her mattress, and his face is just poking out. If that was me and I saw this photo afterwards, I would move directly out of that room, out of that house, do not pass go, do not collect 200, and just never look back. Of course, this is photoshopped, but I mean, I hope. Fingers crossed it's Photoshop, but that's just so creepy. Okay, at number 5, we have a girl taking a selfie. Okay, what is happening on the back window here? I feel bad. The selfie is actually pretty nice, but how did that guy even get there? I mean, why is he there? I have a lot of questions. He also looks like a demon, but he could also equally just look like he just fallen onto the window, or maybe he chose to jump onto it. I don't really know, but I'm surprised the girl didn't notice mid-picture. I mean, it looks like she was taking a selfie, so in a selfie, she should have definitely seen the person behind her, but maybe she was doing it old school and just like turning the phone around. Who knows? But either way, she probably straight up screamed after checking the photos. Definitely not Instagram worthy. Okay, at number 4, we have a really old school photo of some kind of group of girls. Maybe it's actually a school photo. I actually don't know. Literally nothing seems out of the ordinary at first glance, and it actually took me a very long time to figure out what was wrong with this picture. I know now. My eyes have been opened. It's actually this random hand on the girl's shoulder, the girl on the far right. I thought the hand was from the girl behind her. Her arms are actually crossed, so it's obviously not her hands. And then I just realized the girl with a hand on her shoulder just is not even looking at the camera. She's looking elsewhere, on another vibe, on another level, with her decapitated hand ghost friend just not caring about what the hell is going on. Power to you, but also your ghost friends are creepy. Okay, at number 3 now, we have this picture that was apparently captured on a hospital CCTV camera. And the woman in the picture apparently died the same day this photo was taken, but I actually just don't see a woman on the bed. I mean, we have the massive dark figure on the bed. I mean, look at her limbs. Gender unknown, species unknown. It has like a massive bum that goes into its long legs. The feet don't even look like feet. They look like claw, hand, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of this. And the worst part is, it doesn't even look photoshopped. That's the scary part. Maybe it's her spirit that's finally just released into the ether, and that's what her spirit was. At number 2, we have a picture from someone's visitor camera outside their house. And this freaked me the hell out. I mean, what is up with this guy's eyes? I've actually seen this one before, and apparently this is 100% real. So the guy who owns the house was basically asleep, but he kept getting notifications on his phone that the doorbell was detecting a visitor, and he sees the footage the next day and sees this dude. Just imagine, you're sleeping in your house, safe and sound. No. You just set the scene, have some creepy music in the background. You're sleeping. You have this guy wandering around your door at God knows what hour of the night, probably crazy, probably could kill you, and you find this the next day. I'm shook. Last but not least, at number 1, we have this very old family photo. And I say old because look at the women's hairstyles, that's very circa, I don't know, World War II. But how is this full-on man hanging from the ceiling? He's so clearly there, how did they not notice him during the picture? And I'm sorry, even if he did magically fall from the ceiling at the exact moment this photo was taken, I have 2 questions. 1, if he did fall, how did none of them see his body or anything up there beforehand? And 2, if he fell during the photo, how did the camera not capture their reactions? Like, I would have cried. I don't want to say it's a ghost because the man's body looks so 3D and real, and like, I feel like I could grab the man's belly, but it just doesn't look like an apparition. I feel like it's not Photoshop, I don't know what to believe, and I have no idea what is happening. Just like the case with all 10 photos.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have The Visitor. This one comes from a Reddit user called Fan and Depressed. They posted this picture with the caption, "Got a notification from my smart home app in the middle of the night saying your doorbell detected a visitor." That's all he put, and that's all that was needed. He posted it to the creepy subreddit. It has gained over 34,000 upvotes. One of the top comments said, "Why are you doing this? Because you were home." That's a quote from the movie Strangers, where some twisted home invaders give their reason for terrorizing a woman in her home. It's a great movie, and yeah, it does remind me of this too. Can you imagine how terrifying it would be to see this on your phone app in the middle of the night? There was no follow-up story to this. I just hope they were alright. Next up at number 9 now, we have The Mummified Captain. This is the disturbing story of Manfred Fritz Bajorat, a German man who was found in his boat by 2 fishermen off the coast of the Philippines. He was dead. His corpse had been preserved by dry ocean winds, hot temperatures, and the salty sea air. It could not be determined how long he had been dead for, but he hadn't been seen by anyone for 7 years. He'd actually been sailing the world on his yacht for the past 20 years. It's thought that from the way he was sitting, death was unexpected, perhaps from a heart attack. The police said there was no evidence of a second person aboard, and no weapon was found on board the yacht. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Home. This is a 1948 picture of a girl who grew up in a Nazi concentration camp. Now, she was asked to draw what home was, and this is what she drew. The photograph was taken by David Seymour in a home for emotionally disturbed children located in Warsaw. Not much is known about the girl other than her name, Teresa. The swirling lines are a stark reminder of horrors of the Holocaust. More than 1.5 million Jewish children were killed in the Holocaust. Those that survived often ended up like Teresa, lost, shocked, and unable to grasp a simple concept like home. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Obsession. George Karl Tanzler was a radiology technician from Germany. He moved to Florida where he married Maria de Hoyos, a local Cuban American woman. She died of tuberculosis 5 years later, despite his best efforts to save her. He wouldn't accept her death though. After her funeral, George dug up Maria's body and took her to his home. He attempted to preserve her. This is the picture of his efforts. He attached her bones together with wire and coat hangers and fitted her face with glass eyes. He replaced her skin with silk cloth soaked in wax. He gave her a wig and filled her insides with rags. He covered her in jewelry, and the smell was masked with copious amounts of perfume. The body was eventually discovered by authorities a full 9 years after he first removed her from her resting place. Next up at number 6 now we have the catacombs. This is a very disturbing picture. Please look away now if you're sensitive to death and all that kind of thing. This is a story of Masha, a Ukrainian woman who went out with a large group of friends to celebrate New Year's Eve in 2005. It was a foggy night with temperatures around freezing. The group stumbled into the Odessa catacombs, an ancient tunnel and cave system that spans for over 1,500 miles. Somehow Masha became separated from her group and got lost in the dark. She seems to have wandered for days with no food or water before slipping into a coma and then death. Her body wasn't discovered for months until this picture was taken by some local boys who found her. Still, she wasn't retrieved by authorities for a further 2 years. When the story was shared on Reddit, people tried to imagine how terrifying it must be to be lost in the dark like that, pitch black darkness, unable to see any difference between your eyes being closed and open, and totally alone. Moving on to number 5 now, we have shell-shocked. In World War I there were hundreds of thousands of soldiers who got shell-shock, a type of PTSD brought on from the endless bombardment they had to endure. Tens of thousands of soldiers were treated for the disorder. Victims were said to have a 1,000-yard stare, looking into the distance as their mind went blank. Here is a famous picture from a soldier during the Battle of the Somme, a battle which killed 3 million men. This man appears to be suffering from shell shock. He has a crazed look in his eyes that is often associated with those who had shell shock. It's an image that has become increasingly associated with war, especially the hell that was World War I. Next up at number 4 now we have the subway. In 2012 the New York Post ran a story with this picture. It was of Ki Suk Han, a 58-year-old man who was pushed onto the tracks by a stranger. He was fatally struck by a train seconds later. The suspect was 30-year-old Naeem Davis, who confessed to pushing the innocent man onto the tracks. The picture shocked New Yorkers and people around the world. Why was someone taking a picture instead of trying to help? Should the New York Post even have ran that story and published that picture? What do you guys think? Next up at number 3 now we have Madame Violet. This is a picture of Violet Spears, otherwise known as Madame Violet. She was the leader of a group of real-life vampires in Edinburgh in the late 19th century. They were called the Hive. They became known as lovely but dangerous partiers, seducing men and women with drugs and alcohol and then making them donate their blood to them, so to speak. Some of the victims even joined the Hive and she became their leader too. In 1882 and 1884 she was apparently voted the scariest woman in England, even though she never left Scotland. That's how scary she is. She scared another country she didn't even live in. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the vulture and the little girl. On March 26, 1993, the New York Times shared a picture known as Struggling Girl. It showed a famine-stricken boy, initially believed to be a girl, who had collapsed from malnutrition during a famine in South Sudan. In the background, a vulture waits patiently. These birds have a keen sense of death, and this one has its eyes on the boy. The picture shocked the world. The photographer, Kevin Carter, was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for his photography. He actually killed himself just 4 months later. The reasons are largely unknown, but many people speculate that pictures like this can drive anyone down a dark path. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Hiroshima shadows. When the US dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan's Hiroshima, over 100,000 people were killed. Some of them who were close enough were literally vaporized into thin air. The intense heat of the explosion caused what's now called nuclear shadows. The blast forever changed surfaces because of the UV radiation. Surfaces that were blocked by people looked different to its surroundings, leaving a sort of permanent shadow of the person who was vaporized. This is one of the most striking images for me. What appears to be an old person stood at the bottom of the steps. You can even see the cane in their hand. It's a shocking reminder of how destructive weapons of war have become, how quickly life can be snuffed out in an instant, leaving only a shadow behind. Coming in at number 10 now, we have Cursed Warning. This one was posted to the subreddit by the user Surrealism. It's pretty creepy. We've got a sign there that simply reads, "Leaving last, turn out the lights," and we've got a sort of squiggly child drawing of a man turning out the lights, but of course there at the bottom of the stairs is a real life version of that squiggly man. Pretty creepy stuff. Let's do that quick checklist, shall we? Who? A creepy squiggly man? I don't really know. What? I don't know. I think he's waiting for us. Why? I don't know. And how? Well, I don't think I want to know. Yeah, that ticks all the boxes. Moving on to number 9 now, we have cursed teeth. Now this one was posted to the subreddit by Dakeeper70. It's some sort of leaflet that came through the mail. It says, "Thanks for being a Kohl's customer, here are some teeth." And yes, there, in a small plastic bag. What? Why? Who? Well, what's going on? At the bottom of the leaflet it just says, "Please buy more of our clothing items, thank you." So, they sell clothes? What have the teeth got to do with anything? Whose teeth are they? How did they get them? Everyone in the comment section just wanted an explanation for this, but everyone was also a little bit scared of what the answers would be. Definitely a cursed image. Next up, number 8 now, we have cursed cuddle. This one gave me the actual creeps. Look at it. What is it? It's horrific. It's tiny, hollow eyes, featureless face, flappy neck rolls and pointy little fingers. I think what's even creepier though is the affection that the woman is showing this creature. It could be a normal couple's photo if it wasn't for, you know, the creature thing. They even look like they're sitting on a front deck or a porch or something, just enjoying the summer, maybe having a few drinks, chatting, taking pictures like this, ignoring the fact that he looks like walking frostbite. Horrific. Let's just move on. Moving on to number 7 now guys, we have cursed toilet. This one was uploaded by user Allmanner. Now we've all seen bad toilets in our lives. I'm sure we've all got horror stories about what we've seen when we open up the lid, especially public toilets, but this is something different. This looks like all the evil from hell has been trying to escape onto the surface after thousands of years, and finally it found this toilet. This is like an actual portal to hell. From this toilet, the scourge will spread across the land and cover every single one of us. I'm saying this as a joke, obviously, but if it's true, well, I'll be quite annoyed. Yeah. Moving on to number 6 now, we have cursed basement. If that last one was a bit fun and creepy, all the fun has gone for this next picture, I'm afraid. Here we see a man with some sort of furry dog costume hat in what looks like a torture basement. I'm assuming it's a torture basement because he looks like he's holding some kind of strap. There's also an ominous looking table, and then there's a woman with some sort of gag in her mouth staring up at the camera in terror. That's how I know. I don't miss a beat. I know, I'm switched on. So this ticks all of our boxes as well. We don't know who he is, we don't know what this is, we don't know why it's going on, and we don't know how it came to be. All I know is that this place needs a big police tape round it, forever. Next up at number 5 now, we have cursed charger. Just look at this for a cursed image. What is going on there? That is not natural. Now they say that in the future humans might become a sort of bionic species, a mix of both natural and artificial parts. This ain't it though. This is some sort of umbilical cord charger. It looks like it was specifically meant for this, like someone actually designed it. It's the kind of thing you think of in a nightmare and then you wake up and you try and forget it forever. You don't go and actually design the thing. Part of me is freaked out by this, part of me kinda wants one. Coming at number 4 now, we have cursed look. This was posted to the subreddit by Svet Sanctuary. Take a look at this. First of all, yes, it's creepy, but is it cursed? Well, let's go through those questions again, shall we? We don't know who the woman is, we don't know what this photo is of, and why the other women's eyes are covered. We don't know why the photo was taken, and we don't really know how the picture came to be in the first place. It seems to tick all the boxes for a cursed image, and everyone on the subreddit seemed to agree as well. I think it's the blurred out eyes that does it for me. Clearly the person who took the picture knows there is something creepy going on here with this woman because they wanted to protect the identity of the other women. And what is the reason for that? We may never know, or may never want to actually know. Moving on to number 3 now, we have cursed offer. This one was posted to the subreddit by user Big Stank Dog. Great name. It's a screenshot of someone selling their iPhone 7. It's 32 gig. They're providing the charger cable too. The only problem is the touchscreen is locked to someone's fingerprint. But don't worry, they provided the finger too. Yeah, there it is. Apparently that's the finger that you'll need to carry around forever if you want to unlock your new phone. When I first saw this, my initial reaction was, okay, that's weird, but there's no way this is real, okay? And you know, it might not be, but the finger looks very real, doesn't it? I don't know why I'm talking like this right now. That finger looks exactly like a real human finger, right down to the little wrinkles and colouring and the knuckle, everything. I'm hoping it's just a really good prosthetic. I'm hoping so much. Next up at number 2 now, we have cursed super friends. Here's a picture of Jesus with a rocket launcher, a boy holding some sort of gourd, a man dressed as an Ebola hunter armed with a toy gun and some sort of chemical sprayer. What circumstances could possibly bring these people together? Did they know each other before before this picture happened? Did they all just happen to be at the right place at the right time? What are they going to do after this picture was taken? Are they going to go and fight evil and Ebola at the same time? What happened to them? I think you can tell this one's a really good cursed image because I've left it with more questions than answers. And finally, number 1 now, we're going to just finish with Cursed Bieber. Just look at this, guys. This is what our civilization has come to. That face will never leave my memory now. I'm not talking about the young Justin Bieber, I'm talking about meat Justin Bieber. The Justin Bieber face made out of actual mincemeat and bacon. Don't get me wrong, I think it's creative. I never would have thought to have made Bieber's hair out of bacon, mainly because I'm sane, but it's just a strange thing to do, isn't it? And that's me saying that. Imagine what Justin Bieber would think of this. I'm sure Justin Bieber fans have done some very strange things before, but this has to be up there with them. I wonder if they cooked it after. I wonder if they ate it. I wonder if they enjoyed eating Justin Bieber's face. I wonder about all of this.
Starting off this countdown, we have the plot to kill. This photo was taken of Thomas Bart Whittaker on the left and his younger brother Kevin on the right, just hours before Thomas planned to have his family killed. So apparently the two brothers were just goofing off and their mother wanted to take a photo of them. Then later they went out for dinner as like a little celebration for Thomas completing his exams, which was a lie. Anyways, while they were at the restaurant, Thomas had his friend enter his home and retrieve a gun and stage a burglary. He then waited at the front door for Thomas's family to return home. Once they did, he shot Thomas's mom and brother. His dad managed to survive. The photo shows Thomas's happy younger brother, but little did he know that his older brother literally had a plot to kill him. It's so disturbing. In our 9th spot, we have Victor Barrio. But before we go any further, if you guys are liking this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and of course, subscribe to our channel. Come on guys, it really helps us out, so hit that button, subscribe, ring that little bell. Victor Barrio was a 29-year-old Spanish bullfighter. Sadly, on July 9th, 2016, his bullfighting days came to an end when a 529-kilogram bull's horn pierced through his chest. This moment was captured in front of a live audience and also was broadcasted on live TV. Some people managed to get photos as this happened and it's horrifying. You can see the look of pain on his face as the bull's horn just plunges through him. Like, I feel so bad for him and for all the people that had to witness it. It's so scary. In our 8th spot, we have the Panama hikers. Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon were two young Dutch females that saved up to take a trip to Panama. Except while on a hike in the Panamanian jungle, the two disappeared. It wasn't until months later that their bodies were found, but it's still unclear how the two died. The last photos taken of them were in April of 2014, the day that they went on the hike. They are selfies of the girls looking very excited to be on the trip. These photos were found on their camera, which was found in a backpack along the banks of a river. The camera also contained other pictures, like of the jungle in the dead of night. Maybe they were using the camera's flash as a source of light. Another photo showed the back of Chris's head and it was bleeding. Again, it's so scary looking at these photos. Like, these poor young girls had no clue what was about to happen to them and they were so excited for their trip. Coming in at number 7, we have the drowning. On October 22nd, 2003, Tina Watson and her husband, David Gabriel, went out scuba diving on their honeymoon. They just got married 11 days earlier, and scuba diving was part of their honeymoon itinerary. Now, in this photo, if you look right at the back, you can see a diver laying on the seafloor. That's Tina Watson. A few minutes before this photo was taken, it's believed that her husband turned off her air supply and held her underwater until she drowned. Then he swam up to the surface to alert other divers that she was in trouble. The photo was captured accidentally and you can see the divers going to help Tina. Some say he held her underwater until she drowned. Others say he saw her struggling as a new scuba diver and just kind of left her there to die on her own. Either way, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter and that was the last photo ever taken of her. In our 6th spot, we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. In February of 1959, a group of 9 experienced hikers set out to traverse the snowy mountains of Siberia. However, they all ended up mysteriously dying one by one. This photo was one of the last photos taken of them. Now, this case has been debated about for years, and there's tons of theories as to what happened to them. Some say they were hit by an avalanche at night and died from exposure. Others say a Yeti got them. In fact, there was a picture of a creature that looks like a Yeti spaghetti found on one of the explorers' cameras. But it's a very odd case, like their tent was found ripped open from the inside, 2 bodies were found and they were only wearing underwear in the freezing cold. Another explorer's body was missing her tongue, eyes, and lips, and 2 of the other bodies had major chest fractures. To cause someone that much damage, it would be like equivalent to a car crash. And another hiker had a really high level of radiation on their clothes. It's just crazy, and to this day we don't know what truly happened. We all have these theories, but the only ones that really know are the hikers in the photo. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the submarine murder. Back in August of 2013, freelance journalist Kim Wall got an interview with Danish inventor Peter Madsen. As part of the interview, Kim was set to take a trip on his homemade submarine. This photo shows Kim aboard the submarine just before her trip. Sadly, once inside, Peter killed her and dismembered her body. Why did he do this? Well, some say he became fascinated with murder and torture. Evidence showed that he had been watching videos of women being killed on his computer, and shortly before he beheaded Kim, he watched a video on it. So it was clear that he had a fascination with it. It's sad that Kim had to be his victim. In our 4th spot, we have the Facebook murder. A couple of hours after this picture was taken, Cheyenne Anton left, used the black belt she is seen wearing in that photo to strangle Brittany Gargle. The 2 were best friends, but apparently got into a heated argument and Cheyenne hit and strangled Brittany. Imagine taking a selfie with someone you thought you could trust just for them to go and kill you a couple hours later. It is so sick. Now, Cheyenne actually got away with this murder for 2 years until police finally found this photo on her Facebook and noticed that the belt that she was wearing was the same one found at the crime scene. She then pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Moving on to number 3, we have parkour gone wrong. Pavel Kashin was known for his dangerous stunts and abilities. In 2013, he challenged himself to do a backflip on the edge of a 16-floor building. He successfully completed the backflip, but as he landed, he lost his footing and fell over the edge. He died instantly. This photo was captured by his friend while he was performing the stunt. You can see he's in mid-air doing his trick. Sadly, that was the last stunt he ever performed. And at number 2, we have the stalker. On February of 2017, best friends Abby Williams and Libby German headed out for a hike in Indiana. This photo is of Abby Williams, taken right before they were both murdered. What's very disturbing is that in the background of these photos, you can literally see their killer lurking there. Apparently, the man was stalking them for quite some time, and in the girl's photo roll, they actually got some pictures of him, probably because they felt like he was following them. So in the last photo ever taken of Abby, you can literally see her killer behind her. It makes me so sick. Worst of all, he's never been caught. There's currently a reward for anyone that can identify the man though, so hopefully they can get some justice soon. And in our number 1 spot, we have the gruesome scene. This photo is going to send shivers down your spine. But before I show you, let me give you a quick backstory. So this photo was taken of Travis Alexander while he was taking a shower. It was taken by his girlfriend and murderer Jody shortly before she stabbed him 27 to 29 times. She also slit his throat nearly ear to ear and shot him in the head. It was a very gruesome and sinister murder. In this photo, you can see how uncomfortable Travis looks. It's almost as if he knew she was up to something. He looks absolutely terrified. Now, the camera that captured this photo was actually tossed into his washing machine as an attempt to destroy it, but it didn't work, and some of the photos were still salvageable, like this one and one that she took of Travis's dead, bloody body. I saw it. You don't want to see it.
At number 10, parkour gone wrong. I'm sure you've all seen an example of parkour before, but I would personally describe it as people launching themselves from one spot to the next, avoiding injury by the skin of their teeth. Often done outdoors, some of the maneuvers these people do are seemingly impossible. While it takes a lot of practice and coordination, this sport can also be super dangerous. Parkour daredevils like to take things quite literally to the next level, and as heights get higher and tricks get more technical, disaster's not far behind. Pavel Kashin was a Russian parkour artist who unfortunately learned his lesson the hard way. In 2013, he was performing a stunt on the rooftop of a 16-story building with a friend filming. They ended up capturing the final moments of Kashin's life. He was one of the well-known parkour artists or freerunners, being named one of the best in the world. He was known for his breakthrough stunts, which you can still find videos of today. On the day of his passing, Sheen was standing on a 3-foot wide ledge on the top of an apartment building. The daredevil decided to do a backflip on this very small ledge, with him completing the trick only to lose his footing on the landing and be sent over the edge. Sheen's fans and fellow members of the parkour community showed their support and sent respects to his family. His friends uploaded the final image of Pavel mid-flip with the permission of his parents to the web. Sheen's parents hoped that the image would deter others from doing the same as their son. Number 9. Wind turbine fire. If you've ever seen a wind turbine in real life before, you will know just how massive the energy converting monsters actually are. In October 2013, 2 workers were doing routine maintenance to a 67-meter high turbine in Unexplained, Netherlands. Don't come for me, I know I butchered that name, but while they were doing this maintenance, a fire broke out, quickly engulfing the only escape route, trapping the workers high above the ground. Due to the height of the fire, the firefighters had a hard time reaching the fire to put it out, so a specialized crew of firefighters were called in with a large crane. Unfortunately, this took hours, which the technicians did not have. In their last moments, a photo of the tragedy was snapped, and in it you can see the turbine in a blaze, but you can also see the 2 workers embracing in their final moments. The image just amplifies how big the turbine actually is and shows how hopeless a rescue mission would have been. The men were just 19 and 21 at the time. One tried one last effort to survive, with one man jumping from the wind turbine in the last effort to save himself, and the other tried to scale down the side only to be caught up in the blaze. The man who jumped was found in a field next to the turbine, and the other was found when firefighters were able to finally climb to the turbine. The cause of the fire is unknown, but believed to be a short circuit. While this freak accident ended up taking 2 lives, the tragedy led to a political inquiry into safety precautions for wind turbine maintenance crews. Their final photo together was sad, but it was nice that in their final moments they did have each other. Number 8. Racing to disaster. Gary Box was one of the many firefighters who was there on 9/11, risking it all in order to save lives. Unfortunately, he was also one of the many who never made it home after that day. Hours before heroically losing his life, Box was photographed racing towards the disaster. The image was taken in the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel by a pedestrian in their car. Their engine got stuck in the traffic of the tunnel, so in full gear, carrying as much as they could, Box and the rest of his crew started running on foot to ground zero. Gary was 35 at the time, and his remains were never recovered. All images taken that day I'm sure have something haunting about them, but knowing how little time he had left is another level. At number 7. Ronaldo Dagsa. He was a Filipino politician, a member of the Peacekeeping Action Team, and a corporal in the Philippine Army Reserve Command. Now, this photo is not of Dagsa before he passed, but due to how haunting it is, I still had to include it. His passing achieved notoriety due to the picture he snapped of his family on New Year's with unbelievable timing. The image Dagsa captured also inadvertently captured the man who was about to take the shot that would ultimately take his life. The photo was extremely helpful when it came to investigators identifying the shooter, because the image shows the gunman quite literally seconds before taking the fatal shot. The picture was taken outside the councilman's house in metropolitan Manila. The photo led to a quick arrest of the shooter as well as his accomplice. Apparently, the suspects were known car thieves out on bail, likely holding a grudge against Dagsa, who had the men arrested a year earlier. It is extremely sad that Dagsa unknowingly captured his own final moments, especially with his family being right there, but at least they were able to use it to catch the gunman. Number 6. Discount flight. Keith Sapsford was from Randwick, New South Wales. He passed away just 14 years old, with his final moments caught on camera. On February 22nd, 1970, the teen snuck onto the tarmac at Sydney Airport in Australia with the idea to hide inside a Tokyo-bound plane in order to run away. Unfortunately, Sapsford would never make it to Tokyo. His father described Keith as a curious kid who always had an urge to keep on the move. Due to his restlessness, his parents decided to send him to Boys Town, a Roman Catholic institution specializing in troubled children, for some discipline and structure. Instead, Sapsford escaped from the facility after a couple weeks and headed to the airport. Thanks to the far more relaxed regulations and security of the 70s, Sapsford was able to sneak onto the tarmac with ease. It's unknown if Keith knew where the plane was headed, but he saw a plane preparing for boarding and climbed into its wheel well. It took a few hours for the plane to take off, but eventually it made its way to the sky. What Keith didn't know was that the plane was going to reopen the wheel compartments to retract the wheels. When this happened, Sapsford Sapsford fell out of the plane, falling 200 feet. One of the craziest things about this tragic event was by pure coincidence. Photographer John Gilpin was simply taking pictures at the airport when he unknowingly snapped a pic at the exact same time Sapsford was falling from the plane. I bet when he developed that roll of film, he was totally surprised. His father later said, "All my son wanted to do was see the world. He had itchy feet and his determination to see how the rest of the world lives cost him his life." Obviously what happened to Keith was a tragedy, but the photo captured by Gilpin is remarkable as well as haunting. At number 5, Fatal Friend. Brittany Gargle and Cheyenne Antoine were the best of friends until they weren't. Apparently Brittany was extremely hardworking. At 16 she was juggling school and 2 jobs. Antoine had a rough upbringing with her parents falling into substance use. Cheyenne grew up in foster care. At 15, Antoine's mother passed away, and to cope with the news she got involved with some dangerous company, also falling into substance use. That's when the two girls met, and Brittany helped Cheyenne manage her feelings and the two became close. On March 25, 2015, Brittany posted a picture of her and Cheyenne on social media. The two planned to go out for drinks and have fun, but as the night went on, things got out of hand and the details became fuzzy. The girls traveled to a pub, then to a house party, and then one more pub. Cheyenne claimed that around 4 AM, Brittany asked a man for a lighter and invited him for drinks, but she didn't know what happened later. Cheyenne heard nothing from Brittany the next day, and later the police received a 911 call of a woman lying on her back, cold to the touch. The woman was identified as Brittany. Cheyenne was questioned and her story checked out, but the police thought she was hiding something. As the police dug further, more details came out. In the end, Brittany's passing was ruled a strangling, and this led them to a crucial lead. It was the picture Cheyenne had posted on social media the night of the events. In it, Cheyenne was wearing a stylish black belt, the same belt that had been found at the crime scene. In 2017, after all the evidence collected, Cheyenne was arrested for taking Brittany's life, with Cheyenne claiming not to remember anything due to the substances. In the end, Cheyenne was sentenced to 7 years in prison, with her release in 2024. At number 4, The Final Dive. Nicholas Mivoli was an American free diver who passed doing what he loved, but not before taking a picture that will give you the chills. Mivoli began freediving competitively in 2012, winning titles twice at the Deja Blue competition and finishing 3rd at the Caribbean Cup in Honduras. With much success in his newfound passion, Mivoli only wanted to take things even further. On November 15, 2013, he prepared to dive into Dean's Blue Hole, hoping to reach 72 meters on a single inhalation with no fins or supplemental oxygen. Surrounded by 15 other athletes and observers as well as 5 safety divers, he submerged face first, looking like a human arrow diving into the darkness that would ultimately end up being his last dive. Mike Board, freediving record holder, said diving into a depth with no fins, that's a hard physical dive. I was thinking, okay, he's going to have a hard time getting up. Yet after a dive of 3 minutes and 38 seconds, Mivoli shot back up to the surface. Unfortunately, instead of celebrating the dive, things quickly turned into a nightmare. Mivoli ripped off his goggles, flashed the OK sign, and attempted to complete surface protocol that would make the attempt official by saying, "I am okay," but he wasn't. His words came out jumbled and his eyes were wide and blank. This moment was captured on camera, and the blank fear in the diver's eyes is frightening. He lost consciousness and never regained it after suffering a pulmonary edema. Number 3. Dyatlov Pass Mystery. The Dyatlov Pass incident was the event in which 9 Soviet trekkers passed away in the northern Ural Mountains between February 1st and 2nd, 1959 in uncertain circumstances. There are many theories as to what caused the tragedy, but ultimately it's a mystery. The experienced trekking group from the Yuri Polytechnic Institute was led by Igor Dyatlov. Overnight, something seemingly caused the group to cut their way out of their tent from inside and flee the campsite. While them cutting open their tent from the inside is confusing enough, the bodies found were improperly dressed for the heavy snowfall and the freezing temperatures. As the story goes on, things only get further from making sense. After the bodies were discovered, Soviet authorities determined that 6 had passed from hypothermia, while the other 3 suffered physical trauma. 1 had major skull damage, 2 severe chest trauma, and another had a small skull fracture. 4 of the bodies were found lying in a creek, and 3 of those bodies had soft tissue damage to the head and face. 2 bodies were missing missing eyes, one missing a tongue, and another had missing eyebrows. Now, if it had just been the hypothermia, this case would be totally different, but what the heck did all this physical damage in the middle of nowhere? While we aren't sure exactly what went down, there are lots of pictures of the group's final days as well as plenty of theories. There was a new investigation opened in 2019 calling it an avalanche, but I don't know still. Does an avalanche really remove your tongue and eyeballs? Number 2. Miracle of the Andes. On October 13, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, chartered by an amateur rugby team, crashed into the Andes Mountains. The wreckage of the crash was not located for more than 2 months. There were only 16 out of 45 who survived the whole thing, with the incident gaining international attention after it was revealed the survivors had resorted to cannibalism. Due to the bad weather, the pilot of the plane misjudged their location and the plane ended up striking a mountain, losing both wings before crashing into a remote valley of Argentina, near the Chilean border. A search party was sent out, but due to the white plane on the white snow, it was unable to be spotted from above. After 8 days, the search was called off, thinking there were no survivors, though later rescue efforts were taken over by family. There were initially 33 survivors, but due to the elements, injuries, and an avalanche, the numbers were shrinking. Several survivors surveyed the area for an escape route. On December 12th, almost exactly 2 months since the crash, 3 men set out to go find help. Though one did return to the crash site after a difficult trek, the other 2 men finally came across some people. It was December 20th now, and the people they found alerted the authorities. On December 22nd, 6 survivors were flown to safety, but bad weather meant the remaining 8 waited until the 23rd. There are photos from both before the crash of the group. On the plane and after of the group surrounding the fallen plane, as well as books and a movie about the incident. And at number 1, solo hike. In 2014, 2 women, Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, were visiting Panama from the Netherlands, and on April 1st they went on a walk through the scenic forest near the Baru volcano, only to never return. Alarm was raised the day after they didn't return from their hike, and a search party was sent out right away, only to find no sign of Kremers or Froon. A while later, a local woman found Froon's backpack. In the bag they found her camera, 2 pairs of sunglasses, some cash, her passport, a water bottle, 2 bras, and both the women's phones. Probably the most concerning they found were the final images taken on the camera. All of the photos from April 1st are just the 2 women exploring the jungle. Then there are no pictures until April 8th, when 90 unsettling pictures were taken with the flash in the middle of the jungle, timestamped between 1 and 4 AM. Most of these images are of complete darkness and the jungle floor, but there are 2 very alarming pics. One shows some of the women's belongings on a rock, and the other looks like the back of Kremers' head with what appears to be bloodstain in her hair. Something else suspicious about the camera is that image 509 was missing, with 508 being the last of them looking okay, and image 510 being the first in the darkness days later. They found a pelvic bone and a foot still inside a boot. Froon's bones appeared to decompose naturally, but Kremers seemed to be stark white as if they'd been bleached, further leading to question if someone else was involved.
Coming in at number 10, we have tiny hole disease. The bad people of Photoshop invented a horrible disease in order to trigger people with trypophobia, the fear of tiny holes. I actually really don't like a tiny hole, this much I know. So people with trypophobia will be afraid of little holes in symmetrical patterns. A lot of the time this is kind of the sickening symmetry that you can find in nature, like in honeycomb or certain plants. For example, meet the lotus pod. It actually makes my stomach turn. Remember the lotus pod for just one moment. Obviously when it comes to tiny holes in the skin, then that just hammers the fear home, right? The only way in real life you can get anything close to holy skin is by like kneeling on a bag of peas. Or is it? My friends, have a look at this. Lots of people have delighted in photoshopping grotesque holes onto people's skin, and that makes me feel absolutely not okay. The humble lotus pod has even been used to generate a horrifying looking skin condition that thankfully doesn't exist. Okay, can we stop looking at this now? Please. Coming into number 9, we have Voldemort. Could it be magic? No. No! Does anyone else here remember Take That? I feel like America never had the pleasure of the British boy band, but whatever, I stand by the reference and I just like to sing in the middle of lists. Honestly, it makes this whole dark Photoshop thing a lot easier to deal with. So remember when Dobby the house elf was spotted on security camera in the middle of the night? Well, I'm thinking that there's some kind of Hogwarts back from the dead resurgence going on, because this is something happening with Voldemort. I think that there's a poor soul with a Voldemort stuck on the back of his head. I guess that actually this is a black and white photo, so perhaps it predates the whole Professor Quirrell and Voldy era. For those of you who have forgotten, it looked a lot like this.
Bravery. Your parents had it too.
Like, what is going on with the evil on the head? Is this some kind of pre-Voldemort? Is this a wizard thing? I don't like it. This is one of the first examples of horror Photoshop. Coming into number 8, we have the 9/11 plane. This picture went viral on the internet and purportedly captured the moment just before one of the hijacked planes hit the World Trade Center. It shows a tourist unaware of his impending fate and the imminency of the moment that would change the world forever. Note the date on the picture. This image was actually unleashed to the world 2 weeks after the 9/11 attack and spread like wildfire over the internet at a time that people were still very much grieving. So did this picture capture the final moments of a man's life? Well, no. There are some digital imperfections that are visible to the trained eye, but beyond that, the man is wearing a coat, and I'm not sure if you've ever been to New York during the month of September, but it just isn't coat weather. Also, the observation deck doesn't open until 9:30 AM, so there wouldn't have been anyone up there yet. The plane also looks like it's approaching from the north, but the North Tower didn't have an outdoor observation deck, so it absolutely couldn't have been there. The plane isn't the right model either, so basically it was fake and nasty, and I have no idea who would do this and why. The image came from a Hungarian man called Peter, who claimed that it was indeed him as the tourist guy. He created the viral image. Honestly, for me, I think that's really sick. Why would someone want to do that? Things were getting a little heavy there for a second, so let's change up the tone a bit and talk about this absolute poop leader at number 7. I remember this image going viral. It seems to show a cheerleader who experiences a nasty case of diarrhea in the middle of a game. Unfortunate, especially when you're being hoiked into the air. Can you even imagine? A lot of people thought that this image was real. The look of the shock on the cheerleaders on the right hand side certainly make it seem like it could be, although, I mean, I've never seen poop that liquidy. It turns out, thankfully, this is fake. But the scary thing is that this poor girl was shamed. One commenter, Kintinka Min, wrote, "You can ruin someone's life with this sort of thing. I actually saw this image and believed it, and I felt deeply sorry for the girl. Imagine if this really happened and the whole world laughing about it, and now she has to run around explaining that actually this isn't real, right?" Okay, even grosser still at number 6, we have Blue Waffle. No, I'm not actually going to show you these Photoshop images because honestly, internet people be nasty, and trust me when I say you can live without it. You'll actually have a much better life. Let me tell you though a little bit about one of the original Photoshop troll trends. Blue Waffle became a thing in the early 2000s. It is allegedly a sexually transmitted disease that leaves both male and female nether regions looking pretty messed up. Messed up with a bluish tinge. Great. So anyway, a lot of photoshopping of body parts went on, leading people to believe that it was legit. Many people, especially kids, were actually worried about the disease, so many that a doctor felt compelled to make a video about it.
Blue waffle disease is not a thing.
Okay, what else we got? A giant spider and pals are coming into number 5. I don't like spiders, but I am gonna call BS on this straight away. This is scary to look at, but honestly I take comfort in the fact that there is no way that this is real. The image was clearly taken in a house of some kind. A spider is on the ceiling. The thing is though, the biggest spider in the world is the giant bird-eating spider, and 1, it isn't even that big, and 2, it lives in the rainforest of northern South America, so you're very unlikely to see one ever. I would say sleep easy, but I think that the small spiders are real, and that's also gross. Coming into number 4, we have this old ghost. It's an old chestnut, it's an old ghost, I've seen it a lot of times. Have a look at this picture. It's usually accompanied by short stories like this. Back in the 1950s, the Cooper family from Texas moved into their new home, but something was amiss. Once there, they took a family photo, but when they got the picture developed, there was an image of a body falling from the ceiling. On further investigation, the story has brought no plausible explanation. There have been many speculations, including one that argues that the shadow is the ghost of the previous owner of the house. The film was proved as authentic, so what's going on? For me, it's all very Amityville horror, right? No prizes for guessing that of course this image turned out to be photoshopped. The real image is just of a nice family, sitting down, sans ghost. Oh, hey there Slender Man. How are you doing at number 3? I feel like you can't get through a scary top 10 list without reference to Slender Man, so here he is. Slender Man is an internet urban legend that crawled forth from a creepypasta posted on a forum by Eric Knudsen in 2009. The tall, thin humanoid with no facial features piqued the interest of many internet users, so it was only a matter of time before they started photoshopping him into pre-existing images and spreading scary news stories. For example, here is Slender Man seen lurking in the shadows at the back of a group of kids. Here he is responsible for a chance abduction. Here he is having started a school fire. Slender Man, he gets everywhere. Okay, we are heavily on the internet creepypasta wagon here. Coming in at number 2, we have Jeff the Killer. I feel like most of you will recognize this image. Jeff. Jeff the Killer emerged from the internet in 2008, and the story usually goes a little something like this. There was a boy at school, he was terribly bullied, he mutilated his own face and went on a killing spree. Things escalated kinda quickly. He even murdered his own brother, to whom he whispered the words, "Just go to sleep." Horrifying stuff. Right. Sure, creepypasta. It was all over the internet. This is the image used to depict Jeff the Killer, but actually the image is photoshopped from a picture of an innocent young girl. Here is the original. It turns out that the reveal of the real image actually even sparked a new urban legend of its very own. The story then went that the exaggerated and photoshopped image of the teenage girl upset her so much, and she was bullied so hard for being the face behind Jeff the Killer that she herself actually took her own life. Now, I'm actually pretty sure that that part of the story isn't true, but either way, turning a girl into a grotesque caricature just like that isn't okay. I honestly think that Photoshop is scariest when the image is given context, given a story. This Photoshop image at number 1 was so compelling that it made the story seem very believable, and well, I think it's fake. I certainly hope so. Coming into number 1, we have the Russian sleep experiment. The Russian sleep experiment was, according to internet lore, a hospital experiment that was said to have taken place in Soviet Russia. The Soviets were experimenting on political prisoners during World War II. Now, we know that they did do this in some form in real life. Russian doctors allegedly used sleep deprivation as torture and studied its effects. Now, prisoners were told that they would be freed if they took place in a 30-day experiment. To cut a long story short, at the end of the experiment, those still alive could no longer be described as human or even human looking. When asked what they were, one of the subjects reportedly smiled and said, "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." I don't know. Cool. So what does the madness inside of your head look like? Good question. Something like this, apparently. Horrifying, right? I almost believed this story when I saw this picture. That was until I saw the original image. It turns out that the famous Russian sleep experiment image actually comes from a real horrifying movie prop called Spasm that was photoshopped to look like it was a prisoner. Lovely. Great. Horrifying.